The airport was bustling with life, travelers weaving through the terminals with purposeful strides. Sophia sat quietly in the corner of the lounge, her weathered leather bag resting at her feet. At 65, she felt conspicuously out of place among the younger, vibrant crowd. This trip to Africa had been her attempt to escape from the emptiness of her home, the long, echoing silences left behind by her husband's passing 2 years ago. Yet the solitude had clung to her, shadowing her even here. As she shifted in her seat, a young man entered the lounge, his confident energy immediately drawing her attention. He was tall, with a lean build, and a captivating smile that seemed to brighten the space around him. His name tag read, Samuel. He moved with ease, speaking warmly with the staff and fellow travelers. When their eyes met, he paused, offering her a genuine smile before approaching. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said in a deep, soothing voice. "Do you need help with your bag?" Sophia hesitated, pride warring with practicality. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you. I've been struggling with it all morning." Samuel hoisted the bag effortlessly onto his shoulder. "It's no trouble at all. Are you here for the safari?" "Yes," she replied. "It's my first time in Africa." "Welcome, then. You're in for a treat." His smile was warm, genuine. Africa has a way of changing people. Their conversation flowed easily as they waited for their respective groups to be called. Samuel spoke passionately about his work as a guide and his dream of starting his own tour company. Sophia found herself drawn to his enthusiasm, his energy a stark contrast to the heavy stillness she'd carried for so long. When the announcement came for boarding, Samuel helped her with her bag once more. "Maybe we'll cross paths again," he said with a playful grin. "The world has a funny way of bringing people together." As he walked away, Sophia felt a flicker of something she hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation. The open plains stretched endlessly before her as the safari jeep bumped along the uneven trail. Sophia clutched her camera, captivated by the vastness of the landscape. Samuel, seated at the wheel, glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Keep your camera ready," he said, his voice carrying over the hum of the engine. "This area is famous for elephants." Sophia adjusted her hat, aiming her lens at the horizon. "It's breathtaking," she murmured. "I've never seen anything like it." "That's the magic of Africa," Samuel replied with a chuckle. "It always surprises you." When they stopped near a shaded grove, Samuel extended a hand to help her down. His touch was firm, yet gentle, and Sophia felt a warmth that startled her. Together they walked toward a small herd of elephants, grazing peacefully in the distance. As the afternoon wore on, their conversation deepened. Sophia shared fragments of her life she rarely voiced. Her years as a teacher, the joy of shaping young minds, and the void left by her retirement and her husband's death. Samuel listened attentively, his expression thoughtful. "I lost my father when I was 15, he admitted. "I had to grow up quickly to help my family. It wasn't easy." Sophia hadn't expected such vulnerability, but it drew her closer to him. "You've done well for yourself," she said. "It's not easy to carry so much responsibility at a young age." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the vast plains and grazing elephants seemed to fade away. They were simply two people, connected by shared pain and resilience. That evening, as the group gathered around a campfire, Sophia watched Samuel from across the flames. He was laughing and joking with the other travelers, his charm effortlessly pulling them in. Yet, when his eyes found hers, there was a softness in his gaze that felt meant only for her. When the night grew cold, Samuel draped his jacket over her shoulders. "You'll need this," he said simply. Sophia hesitated before accepting, her fingers brushing against his. The gesture sent a ripple through her, a reminder of a warmth she hadn't felt in years. Later, as she lay in her tent, staring at the canvas ceiling, Sophia's thoughts raced. She hadn't come here looking for anything beyond adventure, yet Samuel's presence had stirred something within her. It was confusing, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. The next day, Samuel approached her as she sat journaling. He carried a tray with 2 glasses of wine. "I thought you might enjoy this," he said, placing it on the small table. Sophia smiled, accepting the glass. "Thank you. That's very kind of you." They sipped their wine in comfortable silence, the firelight casting flickering shadows on their faces. Finally, Sophia broke the quiet. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? Like the person you were meant to be got lost somewhere along the way?" Samuel's expression turned serious. "I used to," he admitted. "After my father died, I felt trapped by responsibility. But I realized that the life you want doesn't just happen. You have to fight for it." His words resonated deeply with Sophia. "I envy that clarity," she said softly. "I've spent so much of my life being what others needed me to be. A wife, a mother, a teacher. I've forgotten how to just be myself." "You're more than the roles you play," Samuel said, his voice steady. "You're here, exploring the world. That takes courage." Their eyes met, and in that moment Sophia felt truly seen for the first time in years. Without thinking, she reached out and placed her hand over his. The touch was brief but electric, sending a jolt through both of them. "I shouldn't have done that," she said, pulling her hand back quickly. "Why not?" Samuel asked gently. "Sometimes the things we're told not to want are the things we need most." The days that followed were filled with a tension neither of them acknowledged aloud. They continued their journey, sharing laughter and stories, but the undercurrent of something unspoken lingered between them. On the final night of the safari, Samuel invited Sophia to join him for a walk under the stars. The air was cool and crisp, the sky a canvas of glittering constellations. They walked in silence for a while, the crunch of their footsteps, the only sound. Finally, Samuel stopped and turned to her. "Sophia, I don't know what happens next, but I know that meeting you has changed me." Sophia's heart raced. "I feel the same," she admitted. "But it's complicated." "Life is always complicated," Samuel said with a small smile. "But that doesn't mean it's wrong." He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. As their fingers intertwined, the barriers she'd built around herself began to crumble. The journey back to Nairobi was quiet. Sophia stared out of the window, watching the landscape shift from open plains to bustling city streets. At the hotel, Samuel helped her with her luggage for the last time. Their goodbye was brief but heavy with unspoken emotion. "Thank you, Samuel," she said, her voice trembling. "For everything." "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "You've taught me as much as I've taught you." As she walked into the terminal, Sophia felt a bittersweet ache. This trip had been more than an adventure. It had been a journey of rediscovery. Back home, Sophia began to write. She poured her thoughts into letters to her daughter, Emily, sharing the pain of her loss and the unexpected joy she'd found in Africa. She didn't mention Samuel by name, but his influence was woven into every word. Months later, while browsing the internet, Sophia came across an article about a young African entrepreneur who had launched a successful tour company. The accompanying photo showed Samuel standing proudly in front of a safari jeep with his team.